This song, Bad Blood, is about Katy Perry stealing her dancers. Like, it's so ridiculous and not relatable to most of us. But the way that she's done it, honestly, if I'm going through a friendship breakup, I'll listen to that and I'm like, this is exactly how I feel. Like, you know, she conveys her individual experiences, whether it's relatable or not, but she makes them relatable through her songwriting. And again, she just does it so artfully. She's not saying, oh, I don't know her. She's putting it in song. And I just think that that's beautiful. And that is, above all else, what makes her a diva.
There's a theory that every single person is born under a diva star. It's not a case of if you have a diva, it is a case of who. As queer people, our devotion to our divas is more than just fandom, it's a religion. I'm Dan Brophy, and this is In the Name of the Diva. And in each episode, I'll be talking to a different creator that I admire about an icon that they adore above all others. To find out what these pop phenomena have to teach us about life, about love, and about the determination to be yourself against all odds. Please join me as we gather in the name of the diva. In this episode of In the Name of the Diva, we talk about none other than Ms. Taylor Swift, who is arguably one of the pop stars of this generation. And to do so, I am speaking with Deputy Editor of Pedestrian, published author, journalist Matt Galea. Now, if you are a Swiftie, you're welcome. And if you're not a Swiftie, welcome. This episode uses Taylor as a case study in 21st century artistry, precision storytelling, era-based reinvention, PR myth-making, and the ethics of being a mega brand with human feelings. We unpack how eras like Reputation and Folklore were deliberate strategic pivots, what the documentary Miss Americana exposed, and how her work quietly resonates with queer audiences, even though she hasn't been entirely forthcoming with her support of the queer community. It's been a if you know kind of scenario. I mean, who else would turn a battle for the rights to own your own original recordings into part of your PR scheme? This woman is a genius, and a diva definitely worth our discussion. So please enjoy my chat with Matt Galea on the diva that they adore above all others, Taylor Swift. This episode is brought to you by the Men's Circle. If you're frustrated with lack of connection, lack of community, lack of good conversation, then the Men's Circle is for you. It's a guided breathwork session and a group conversation, and it makes it really easy to find the words to talk about whatever's going on for you that day, that week, that month. If you're in Sydney, you can join us upstairs at the Beresford on the second Sunday of every month. Places for each session are limited, so get in quick and reserve your space. Search I Am Self-Centered on Instagram.
Yeah, I was like, this is embarrassing, and then I said it, and then you're like, oh, thank God no one said that. I was like, okay, good, I'm glad it's a different take, because, you know, they're the obvious one, just shares and whatnot, who I also met when I just went over. She was great.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
do you know how she did that Uber ad?
Uber, yes.
Yeah, she was lovely.
Because this is the thing, like, some of the divas that like people are talking about are very... I won't say lowbrow, but it's Kylie. I can't, like, my diva's Madonna, like, they're very much like the...
Who you think of when you think diva. Yeah.
Then we've got, like, some really niche, very, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad someone's doing Anoni, you know, Johnson's, and someone else is doing Bette Midler, and someone else is doing Sade.
Yeah.
So it's a very...
It's there's a flow. It's the spectrum, the whole spectrum of diva, basically.
The diva spectrum.
Yeah.
So we are gathered here today in the name of the diva.
Yes.
That is...
Taylor Swift.
And Matt Galea, thank you so much for having a chat. I'm so glad that when I reached out, because I knew, you know, we'll get it in a moment. I have to calm my farm because I have so many questions. But we will talk about your background as to where the work that you do. But I was very excited that you chose Taylor Swift as your diva, because I feel like as an author, as a pop culture, you know, aficionado, your take on Taylor will be particularly enjoyable, delicious. So as someone who exists in the media landscape, what is it that you know, how would you describe to a stranger at a party what it is that you do.
So, well, I'm the deputy editor of Pedestrian, first and foremost. So basically, I kind of manage the daily operations, the content of the website. If you haven't heard of it, it's kind of a pop culture news website. So, yeah, started off as a journalist and kind of worked my way up to, be the deputy. And I'm also an author. I released my first book a couple of years ago, and I'm currently working on 2 more, which is great. Both of them in the like kind of mysticism space. But I'm kind of like, a pop culture and mysticism expert, I suppose.
If you are in your 20s, 30s, 40s, Taylor has been around for so long now in so many permutations. What is it that makes her your diva?
Her storytelling ability for me, first and foremost, is the thing that drew me to her. So, yeah, you're right. If you're in your 20s, 30s, whatever, you've been in love with her for a long time. I first fell in love with her in 2009, the love story era. That was a long, long time ago. And I think in terms of her being a diva, she's not who you first think of when you think of the word diva, but she's just so dramatic and over the top. And I think that's something that people often find cringe about her, that she's so, she's so, I don't know, vocal with her emotions, but I don't see anything wrong with that. That in essence makes her a diva. But yeah, just one thing that you cannot take from her is her storytelling ability, the way that she converts the human experience, whether it be heartbreak, falling in love, friendship, fighting with your friends. She kind of turns all of that into these beautiful songs, and her lyrics are amazing, and just the dramatization of her life, I suppose, in the art form of music just makes her such a powerful diva, I think. You're right. She's an undercover diva, because I was actually about to, introduce her as, the sweetest diva in the kingdom, or is she? Yeah.
But I feel like there's something about the fact that all artists and therefore divas are autobiographical, even if not directly literally, but emotionally.
Yeah.
But there's something about the journalistic quality to her storytelling.
Yes.
And you're right, I was listening to Taylor in the throes of having a chat today, or re-listening too, and it was reminding me, it took me down this rabbit hole of car crash relationships I had around the time of Red,
Yes.
and then, which is when she grabbed my attention. The thing about her music for me was it does seem to find a way into the emotional turmoil of being a young person and navigating through emotionally difficult circumstances. And as such, it bakes itself into your psyche, so that when you hear that music in future, even if you're not going through falling in love or falling out of love or having a problematic romance, it just takes you right back to where you were when you first lived it.
100%. And it's so funny with her albums, like she'll drop one, and honestly I've been obsessed for years. Every time she drops one, I would go to JB Hi-Fi to buy it and listen to the whole thing, and obviously now it's on, that's no longer a thing. But my point is, I'll listen to the album, and there'll be songs that I'll connect to based on what I'm going through in that time. Like if I'm in love at the moment, then the love songs I'll really draw to, or if I'm going through heartbreak, then the heartbreak songs I'll be attracted to. And then as time goes on, and then like recently I'm going through a bit of a breakup at the moment, and so I'm going back and listening to some of the songs on the most recent album that I didn't really connect to because they were about heartbreak, but like now I'm really relating to the lyrics. So it's kind of like, yeah, they kind of meet you wherever you are in your life, and they tell your story for you, and it really is just a soundtrack to her life, but it's so relatable to everyone else. Like, honestly, I can't think of another songwriter who channels, the whole range of human emotions more so than she has.
She pays attention to detail in a really interesting way, which is how I love it when, the reason why I love pop in general is because it can encapsulate really big feelings in very simplistic ways, and I feel like she does a really good job of encapsulating huge feelings through small observations.
Yes.
Whether that be things that the protagonist of the songs is observing or paying attention to, or little details. As you have gone on the journey and different songs have resonated at different times, have there been particular moments that stand out, that exemplify that storytelling for you?
In particular, I remember during lockdown, she released 2 albums. There was one called Folklore and one called Evermore. And it's funny, she said that they were all based on fictional stories, but as I listened to it, it's like, these are so just heartfelt. It felt like they came from such like a a powerful level for her. But just in general, that was such a dark time, and there are a couple of songs on there that are just super powerful. There's one called Exile, which is one of the most heartbreaking breakup songs ever written. Another one called My Tears Ricochet, which is amazing, and the messaging behind that is that it's just kind of like wild when you're in a relationship with someone and they're like your whole world, and then you break up and it's like they basically know everything about how to destroy you from the time that you were together. And I just remember that was quite a dark period, and those heartbreak songs, it just came at the perfect time. There are just so many examples. I first fell in love with her in 2009 when she released Love Story. And it's so funny. I realized in going through the research, not that I had to dig very deep because it was right there, but it hit me that the reason why I first fell in love with her kind of had queer origins. Basically, the song Love Story, I'll never forget, I was at this house party in year 11, it was 2009. So I was at a house party in 2009, and I remember, I don't know why, but we're just watching like the music channel as you do, watching the music videos pop up, and I remember Love Story popping up for the first time. And at the time, like I hadn't told any of my friends or anyone basically, but I'd started seeing someone for the first time ever, a guy obviously, and it's just so funny. I realized that the reason why I connected to her in that storytelling was because the theme of the song was the whole, forbidden love and people aren't going to understand and this and that. And I remember being so like drawn to it. And then from them, I just became obsessed. But it's just, I just found it so interesting that my falling in love with her had queer origins to it. It was like she was really kind of reflecting that feeling of falling in love for the first time, but being like, okay, I can't tell anyone about this. All my friends are, they're kind of seeing people for the first time and talking about it, but I kind of couldn't at the time. I was in a very Catholic kind of community. So it was just so relatable to me. And it's just so funny, at each stage of my life, she's released music that's related to whatever I'm going through at that time. It's almost like this weird psychic link. Or as I said earlier, even if it's like maybe she'll release an album and there are songs on there that I'm not connecting to. Maybe if I'm going through a heartbreak and she releases a couple of love songs, I'm like, I love these songs, but I'm not connecting to them as much. Time will go on, I'll fall in love, and then I'll listen back to that album and be like, oh, now it's like whatever emotion or experience you go through in life, she's kind of mirrored that through song form. And it's just so funny. It's like she's a billionaire. She feels so disconnected, but at the end of the day, she's just a human. Like the rest, all divas are humans at the end of the day. And it's just so funny that she's, just does such a good job of, just nailing just the human experience and emotion, but doing it in such an artful. And again, like the reason why I love her so much is because of her writing and storytelling. And it's just, she does it so beautifully, using the power of language to convey human emotion and things like that. So, honestly, in terms of storytelling in through song form, I can't think of anyone that does it better than her.
Do you think that Taylor's target who she's singing to and the life experience that she's putting a frame around, because she's been active for 15 years now or so? I mean, has it been that long? Like I feel like
it started in 2008.
Okay, great. So we're kind of, let's see, we're almost there.
Yeah.
Like it's been such a huge career so far for someone who's pretty young. Yeah. Do you think that who she's singing to and the life experience that she's describing has matured as she has? Or does she have does she always sort of average out on telling a teen's early 20s romance no matter what age she is?
Yes and no. I think she has evolved in some forms. For example, I think just the public scrutiny of her singing about certain guys and making it kind of obvious. Like, for example, the song Style was obviously about Harry Styles, like it's in the name. And I think as time's gone on, she's kind of pulled back a bit based on the public scrutiny she's received. And so some of it's a bit more cryptic, definitely more mature, just in the language, just in the words she used, the metaphors.
Even the sound of folklore as an experience versus the sound of 1989.
Yes.
And also, think about how Reputation feels as an offering by comparison.
Yes.
It almost feels like it's almost easy to forget that there have been these tangents that have taken her down into these entirely new personas.
Totally. She calls them eras for a reason. They're all so different. Yeah.
And she's embraced an identity beyond. I mean, I always come back to Madonna, as you might be surprised to know. But the fact that she is so different in her Reputation era as she would be in her folklore era. Yeah. Not only sonically, but in terms of even the person that we think of her as.
Yeah, totally.
That feels like, well, that's an interesting concept as well, because it does instantly mean if you're a Taylor fan, and it almost feels to me like it's impossible to be like a fair weather fan. You're either not a fan or you're a deep
and you're
obsessive,
and you're just strapped in and in it for the journey. Like, for example, in each of those iterations that you've discussed, like, you can see why she was there. Like, for example, with 1989, she kind of had the world at her fingertips. She had this huge posse of friends. It's all very happy, cheery, shake it off, love, love, love. And then Reputation was a lot darker, sonically, lyrically, visually, in all forms. Like, on tour, there's like a giant snake behind her. Like, it's as dark as it gets. And you can see why. It's because she was kind of, taken down, if you want to call it that, by Kim and Kanye at the time, and was semi-cancelled and then came back. So you can see why that's impacted her. So again, we were on that journey with her publicly, watching it all happen because her life's very on display, and then you're just sitting there waiting for what she's going through publicly to then be echoed in the songwriting, which is a really beautiful experience for fans to be like, oh, I remember going through that period, and she like disappeared, and she like had an album she was working on that she cancelled, and I was like, I can't wait for it to come.
Where would the album have landed in the discography?
So it would have been after 1989, but before Reputation. It's heavily rumoured. There's lots of cryptic clues and Easter eggs, as she loves to give, that point to the fact that she recently released a song called Karma on not her last album, but her album before that, and that was going to be the title of the album. But she kind of scrapped that and decided to instead kind of rework the concept and instead do the whole Reputation thing.
You could almost see how that single word, big era recognition through the concept of karma, which you'd never do lightly. Like, that would be an entire kind of inner exploration of identity through this idea of karma.
Yeah.
Could easily then lead to Reputation. Like,
totally.
It's not like you're pivoting from like lover to karma,
Yeah.
Karma to lover.
No,
you're
exactly.
pivoting from karma to Reputation.
And
that makes sense.
100%. But the title Reputation as well was obviously a reference to the fact that her reputation took such a huge hit, which again we were seeing happening in real time. And then it was, she just did a great job of like turning that whole experience into words. I think one of the reasons why she does cop a lot of criticism is, or I will say this, the Kim and Kanye thing, she's kind of, and this is very diva of her innately, she's still talking about it to this day, like everyone else has kind of moved on, she's still talking about it. She had a song on her most recent album called Thank You Amy, and the K-I-M is in capitals and everything else is in lowercase, so obviously she's she's basically saying outright this song is about Kim, but it was kind of closing the book on that. But that's an innate part of her divaness, that she doesn't take shit and she'll kind of clap back at it. But I will say, like, I was thinking about her compared to all your other divas, your Mariahs, your Madonnas, your everyone else. With all the other ones, there are so many examples, and you're seeing them on TikTok all the time, of them being in interviews over the last however many years, and they can be kind of so shady to each other, as Taylor is in her interviews as well at times, but not as much as the others. Like, you've got, your Mariah saying, I don't know her about Jennifer Lopez, but with Taylor, she mostly does it whenever she has a conflict. She's not as, like, she doesn't do the whole, like, influencer, like, putting this all on my Instagram story and calling people out.
She does it through song.
She does it through song. She does it artfully. For example, I mean, it's
Bad Blood?
I was about to say, it's wild to call Bad Blood art, but it kind of is.
I feel like but that was, just like you were saying, style, I don't know if you use the term Easter egg with style, but it's so funny to even think that you could think of style as the name of a song when you're dating Harry Styles, rumoured to be. Yeah. As being an Easter egg.
Totally.
It's just so heavy-handed.
Just outright. And the Thank You Amy with the Kim in capitals is obviously very Kim.
Exactly. So in some ways she's almost kind of she's telegraphing certain experiences or feelings, and in some ways they're like if you know clues to pick up on. Yeah. And so I feel like there's, it's almost like she gives you, wherever you are in the spectrum of your deep fandom, of your sort of deep state enthusiasm for her, you can tap in on any level, but there's something for you to discover on your own terms through the artful representation of the feelings told through the work.
Totally. And then it's just like, so this song Bad Blood is about Katy Perry stealing her dances. Like, it's so ridiculous and not relatable to most of us. But the way that she's done it, honestly, if I'm going through a friendship breakup, I'll listen to that and I'm like, this is exactly how I feel. Like, she conveys her individual experiences, whether it's relatable or not, but she makes them relatable through her songwriting. And again, she just does it so artfully. She's not saying, oh, I don't know her. She's putting it in song. And I just think that that's beautiful. And that is above all else, what makes her a diva.
Truly.
Yeah.
But she's also, I mean, we also don't know whether that backup dancer story was legit, because there could be, for like personal reasons or legal reasons or, you know, any number of things, like what actually happened was X, but we need to package this conflict through something that is understandable and ultimately seems more palatable to the community. So let's just say it's this thing. I felt like I never truly believed that was the reason why.
And
it didn't feel like enough.
Oh, that would have been like one of many examples. Honestly, that I always think with celebrity beef, what you're hearing is just like the tip of the iceberg.
And it's kind of packaged for consumption specifically.
Yes. There could have been anything. They could have been at a party and there'd been a disagreement. They could have been one of a million number of things, but this is, as you said, the easiest thing that I can put out for public consumption. She stole my dances.
Considering that my target market is also...
Because it does sound so silly. Yeah. It does.
And it doesn't seem like there's enough... For someone who's so true to her emotional journey, it doesn't seem like there's enough fuel in the fire there to warrant a full kind of like public epic war. Yeah. I will say about that only because I don't think anyone's actually... I openly ask for someone to come on to talk Katy Perry as their diva. I would love someone to make Katy Perry the diva. I could talk...
If you came to me in like 2012, I could have done it, but time has passed.
I've got a lot of, a lot to say about the downfall of Katy Perry as we've witnessed in slow motion. But I will say one of the biggest mistakes she ever made was asking ultimately the same fan base to choose between her and Taylor Swift.
Clever.
Because at the point at which they, cutting your hair, giving yourself a pixie cut when your 5-year-old audience does not relate, and asking as like one girl in the schoolyard to choose between you and another girl in the schoolyard, who undeniably at that point had more fans, stands. I think that was because there's a world in which people didn't have to choose, and you could love both equally, and they were both part of the same clique.
Yeah, totally. And remember when they reunited? Have you ever seen You Need to Calm Down?
Yeah, the hamburger hug.
Yeah, but to me, honestly, I'm just such a skeptic. I was like, this is such bullshit. It's such PR bullshit. She's like, her manager has been like, you're gonna fucking go and you're gonna do this, and she's been like, fine, and they would have spent no time with each other whatsoever. It seems so like, I don't know, it just seems so for show. Like, I didn't believe it.
It did the thing that she would have needed it to do, which is get some column inches.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's always a conversation when you are in the public eye about which is a reason why, like, for example, if someone's trying to hide their queerness as a celebrity and they have a bunch of fake relationships, it's as much about garnering column inches consistently as it is about, having a beard, you know? So you need to invent little... falling in and out of love or friendship, falling out of love or friendship, in order to just keep people talking,
keep people engaged. 100%. Yeah, I do think this all the time because I'm also I'm a bit of a pop culture conspiracy theorist because it's so lighthearted.
Deep state. Yeah, absolutely.
And for example, one of the many ones is I absolutely believe in like contract PR relationships that certain celebrities are stitched together for a certain purpose. Same thing as certain celebrity friendships, and same thing as celebrity friendship breakups. You know what I mean?
So would you put the Lena Dunham, Carly Kloss friendship click Taylor storyline as part of a deal?
Yes, and certain members of that group, yes, and certain ones, no. Like, I feel like Selena and her friendship were organic. They were coming up at the same time. The Bad Blood video, like... 80% of those girls, absolutely. And in fact, it's so funny. There's, for example, Hailey Steinfeld, an actress who's in that movie, in that music video. It feels like a movie. In that music video, I remember for a time after that period, she kept getting asked in every interview, like, what's happening with Taylor? And at one stage, she just finally had enough and was like, listen, I've met the girl twice. Okay. And we weren't like, she didn't like, unveil things, but she just said like, everyone keeps asking me about her. We weren't besties. I went to that music video. I think I went to one party and like, that's it. And now she's my identity. Like, it wasn't like an insidious contract thing, but it was people just kind of turned that squad into more than what it was. But I think that there's only a core amount of those gals who she's actually friends with, because to this day, how many is she still in touch with? Blake Lively just kind of led her astray. Selena, and like the vast majority of them, it's kind of like switched off. So I do think a lot of that was contracty type stuff.
And in a world in which you're Hailey and you blow up because what you've done is big in its own right, then that becomes the key questions of the Taylor storyline falls in the background.
Yeah.
But it almost like there was a bit of a failure to launch in terms of making her a name.
Yeah.
Which then means that Taylor experience almost trumped the actual work that she was putting out into the world.
Totally. It's like when people go on like competition shows and then it's like, yeah, you're on this competition show, but then they kind of fizzle out after it. Or like, this is a random example, but I was watching a documentary about the Glee documentary the other day, and they were saying about how with a lot of those stars, the father of what's that actress who passed away? Naya Rivera. He was saying about how she was never there was a failure to launch for her as well, because after the show, every time she went on an audition, people just saw her as the girl in the cheerleader outfit. And so it's the same thing with these friends of Taylor's. There's a few of them. There are a few other singers who were kind of up and coming, and their identity just kind of became, I'm a friend of Taylor, and then they just kind of fizzled afterwards. Like, Hailey Steinfeld's still going, but yeah, that just struck me as the example of someone who was like, you need to stop asking me about Taylor because we're not actually that connected. And do you know what? I also think with a lot of those sorts of things, like, it was all contrived. I don't even think it would have been Taylor's doing. It would, it would have been like the PRs and all that. And again, it's not just her. It kind of happens across the board.
Yeah, you also have to recognise that these divas and stars are they're actually the face of a company.
Yeah.
And that company has a lot of team members.
Yeah.
And so all of those, like, you actually don't want her wasting time on contracts with other stars to then do the PR hustle for what that deal would look like.
Yeah.
You want her to be writing and making music.
100%.
So but there are only so many hours in the day, so you don't really... I even say to friends who are sometimes not believing me that there could possibly be PR contrivance behind what appears to be an authentic... In terms of Taylor's queer fandom, do you reckon, like, because sometimes when you're a diva, you're expected to go out to bat for your community in a very literal and specific way. And I don't, as far as I understand, recall Taylor ever really having much conversation about the queer experience.
Yeah.
But it's truly related to in such a deep way by the community. Do you think that there's an expectation that she is immune from needing to be really literal with her support?
Listen, that's actually a big part of the criticism, especially from the queer community, that she's done what a lot of celebrities have done, and that she's kind of drip-fed and hidden little like hints of, that she, for example, the what was the video we were talking about earlier? You Need to Calm Down. In that video, that was the first time I think she outwardly made it clear that that's what she's referring to. For me, honestly, when I first fell in love with her with Love Story, I remember reading interviews where she didn't outwardly say it, but she said things like, it's for couples who feels like they can't be together but wish they could. And like at the time, she was, not only was she young, the world was a different place, but she was also in the country music clique. So I understood why she couldn't then. But as time has gone on, it's not even just about like gay rights. It's also about things like the election. She got a lot of criticism for years not outwardly saying, I'm anti-Trump, I'm pro-whatever, because when you do that, you cut off a big part of your audience, especially when it comes to celebrities who their fan base is quite young. They're like, if like their parents have the power to be like, all right, you're not listening to that person anymore, kind of thing, stop buying the merch, stop taking them to concerts and things like that. So I think they are kind of, and again, with a lot of those things, I don't know if you saw her, she released like a documentary film. I'm such a great fan that I forget the name of it. Miss Americana. Yes, Miss Americana. And in there, you see a moment where she's wanting to speak out about her political beliefs, and her dad is saying, no, don't do that, you can't do that, this and that. And they get into like quite a heated debate. And that kind of really makes you realize like, oh, so it's not just them, which must suck.
It's not just what she feels like in her heart that day.
Yes, it's like a team decision.
For this particular diva, she's so genuinely talented, not only as a songwriter, but as a musician, as a live performer. You don't get the feeling that any part of the Taylor experience has to be padded out the way that with some divas, they might be amazing vocalists, but maybe they're not so good with, I suppose you mentioned dancing.
But stage presence and performance.
When I think of her statuesque embodiment of the stand and deliver, I mean, it's for someone who grew up with the guitar, like sitting down with the guitar on their lap, to someone who can entertain in arenas famously. Yeah. Do you feel like, well, have you seen Taylor live?
Every time.
Every time.
The first time I saw her live was in 2010. I've seen her every time she's been back. I went to the Eras tour 3 times.
Stunning.
So, yes. there's been such an evolution, but also it's just, think about how big the Eras tour was. It was like one of, if not the biggest tour of all time. It just wouldn't stop. And like, there's a reason for that. You know what I mean? I've also seen, like, no offense to him, but I've seen Ed Sheeran live and he was good, but like, there's not, he has stage presence, but there's not all that much to the show, if that makes sense.
And poor, you cannot, it feels so unfair to compare them. It's because you've got...
Because he's not a diva.
Ed Sheeran is a lot of things, but a diva he is not. But I feel like it's more appropriate to compare the other behemoth of this era, which is Beyonce. And you have these two artists who've both had epic careers. Beyonce for maybe sort of 5 to 10 years more.
Yeah.
But then undeniably the biggest... Like, you know, they are the biggest acts in the world now.
Yeah.
So everything will be... They are the yardstick by which modern arena spectaculars and tours are going to be measured.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the Taylor experience live lived up to your expectations?
1000% in that fans love her the most for when she's live, just the little monologues that she gives between songs. And that's something that, you know, she could be sitting in this tiny room doing it and it'd still be spectacular. Whoever, and again, like as we were saying earlier, it's kind of like, it's not like it's there's obviously a team behind her, and her team is really smart at playing to her strengths and getting her to do things. For example, there's nothing worse than seeing a singer who obviously can't dance and they're being forced to dance. Taylor just does a lot of strutting, does a lot of like easy moves kind of thing. And there's lots of other things like costuming and the sets. It's kind of like you forget that she's not actually dancing, or that she can't, she can dance, but just she isn't a dancer like a Beyonce. And you almost forget that because there's so much happening. And again, like beyond the bells and whistles, it's just the music's just so good. But then it always comes back to storytelling. It's her just doing such a good job in between songs of speaking to the audience, connecting to the audience, just through her natural charm and her natural connection to her fans, and telling stories of the songs that she's about to sing. You really forget that she isn't a trained dancer because there's so much more to it.
You don't think, actually, as you're saying that, I'm realizing that unlike almost every other diva that I can think of, she hasn't diversified in terms of, now she's an actress, now she has a fashion line, now she has a chocolate bar. Like, there's actually not been the same, you know, she hasn't tried to exist in multiple lanes, but she's gone so deep and almost reinvented herself in a very transformative way within this really specific lane.
Totally. I mean, look, she has dabbled in acting here and there. Just
Has she? What's she done?
She was in... so first of all, she was in Valentine's Day, that movie years ago. She was with Taylor Lautner at the time from Twilight.
Okay, but that's actually
just a silly cameo. She did that. Her most recent... She was in a movie, I forget what it was called, but spoiler alert, she's in it for 5 seconds and then gets run over by a car. What was it called? It came out like a year or so ago.
Was it a horror movie?
No, it was like nominated for like Oscars and things like that, I believe. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, but she has dabbled, but she hasn't tried to make it her focus kind of thing. As you said,
she's not Gaga, she's not Madonna,
totally.
She's not Beyonce even. She's not actually gone and tried to leverage her pre-existing clout as a marketable commodity in a whole nother realm.
Totally. She's, for like, even Justin Bieber's been on like, I think it was on like Criminal Minds. It's like, it's just part of the repertoire for them all to just, you know, jump in and do an acting gig here or there. But yeah, no, she hasn't tried to make it her full focus. She's, really just leaned into what she is best at.
Do you think that, so thinking about Taylor in the future, I feel like from even where I sit as someone who's just really interested in the ongoing journey, as she's progressed, the last couple of albums have almost set her up in a way that she could potentially be doing that flavor of work in 20-30 years time. Where do you think she could go from here, given that she's had these big bombastic, you know, pop moments, and now these quieter, beautiful, folky, intimate albums that could be the flavor of where she goes? Do you sense what could be coming for her in terms of the next era or two?
I think it'll just be for the rest of her career. I think it'll just be what we've seen, because she has had, started off with country, then she went to pop, then she went into folk, then went back into pop. And like, she just kind of goes big, small, jumping in and out of different like pockets of music. And I just think she'll just continue doing that. She'll just continue, like, she released Folklore and everyone had that thought of like, oh, where does she go to now? She went back to her roots, not country roots, but she went back to her pop roots and did a pop album. And then her most recent album was poppy, but it was more poetic and kind of not folky, but it was very wordy and lyrical, more so than ever before. Like, I don't think the audience will ever be tired of her doing the pop thing, to be honest. I think that'll always kind of be where she is, and she'll have ebbs and flows in terms of maybe pulling back and being a bit folky, or maybe one day she'll just jump back into country again, who knows. But honestly, if her history tells you anything, it's that she can basically put out anything and her audience will eat it. Not in the sense that her audience are just blind followers and will listen to everything. It's just that, honestly, anything she puts out has been great, in my opinion. So like, she's like, no matter what she does, it's going to be killer, and she's just shown that she has the range to pretty much go anywhere.
And I'm fascinated by the idea that when it comes to diva devotion, it's as much about what that diva brings alive. Like, I love Madonna because of the fact that Madonna helps me access the Madonna in me.
Yeah.
It's the get up and go, it's the self-belief, it's the determination, it's the pushing against, I suppose, the resistance on the road to being your truest expression of self. And I came to understand what artistry truly meant through observing her and understanding what it is to be an artist through that guise of her journey. What is it about the Taylor experience that resonates with you? Like, does Taylor help you access a part of yourself in some way?
I think it's what I was saying earlier, that she just does such a good job of soundtracking whatever you're going through. And again, you'll listen to her songs and you'll just be like, that is exactly how I was feeling, but I could never put it into those words and that sentence and that she used a lot of metaphors, which are really great. I mentioned earlier the song My Tears Ricochet. The whole metaphor is about someone dying, and that's what it feels like when you break up. You feel like you've died or someone's died. Anyway, it's accessing the human emotion that you're feeling, but she puts it into words and into a story that's just so beautiful. And again, I can't think of anyone else that does it that beautifully and poignantly. And yeah, she just captured a range of different things. Whether it's heartbreak, whether it's friendship breakups. She has songs about her mum's cancer. Just so many human experiences, and she just puts it beautifully into music and into words. And I'm just like, oh, that's exactly how I'm feeling. Didn't realize I was feeling it until you just said that, and you've helped me access those feelings. And I now have this song to listen to that kind of helps me navigate my way through it. It's just kind of like a soundtrack to our lives, basically, by writing about her own life. It's just so wild how that human experience is she's a billionaire. I'm just some schmo from Stanmore. Like, it's just so funny how I'm like, oh my God, we both went through the same thing. And like, we all do. And she just captures that human experience just so well.
Yeah, I agree. There is such universality in specificity. Sometimes you think that you have to be speaking to try to encapsulate everyone's story with work in order for it to be truly relatable. But actually, by talking about your own lived experience in a very, well observed, niche, specific way, there is actually universality in that people can pick up on the vibration, or even just the intention or the observation of storytelling, because you've not necessarily, in the listener's perspective, observed the same thing, but the emotional autobiography is resonating with you because finally someone's called it, named the thing. Or
you'll have, I remember my first editor said to me, whenever I'd write like a first person piece, she'd be like, I'd kind of like, because I was just starting out, and I'd be general so that the reader would relate to it. She was like, no, be specific, because even if they're not relating to that specific thing that you're saying, they'll at least have a similar example and be like, oh my, and Taylor does that so well. She'll have, songs where she sings about things specifically, whether it be leaving Jake Gyllenhaal's scarf at the sister's house, that line from All Too Well. But everyone will have like a similar example of, I don't know, an item of clothing of your ex's that you left or something like that. And so, yeah, by being specific, you're just like, holy shit, I went through a very similar thing or the same thing at times. And it blows your mind.
Because she's so autobiographical and you have this insight into the life she's living behind the work. With the divas that we feel like we know, and they're almost like these girls in our lives that we love but sometimes roll our eyes at. Like sometimes Madonna does a thing that I'm like, yeah, bitch, get it. Like you are so living your truth right now. And sometimes she'll do something where I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, just pull it together, babe. Like you, but because she's human and she's going on a journey that I am rooting for, and I also am totally there for whatever she wants to do because she's an artist.
Yeah.
In terms of the Jake Gyllenhaals and the Harry Styles and the girls cliques, the squads and the foibles of this human, this diva, this girl that you love, what is an example, or do you begrudge her any of her missteps, or are you just like, she's a free-flowing artist, she can do what she likes?
That way of thinking of being like, my favorite artist can do no wrong, I think is so toxic, and it's so big in the fandoms. I think we need to be able to hold them accountable to a certain extent and be like, oh, there are things that, I wasn't so pleased with. And the thing is, like, if she didn't, do things that I didn't agree with, like that, I don't know, that's just not human. Like, of course that there are going to be things that we disagree with. And as we discussed earlier, there are going to be things that she does that I disagree with, where I'm like, that may not have even been her decision. For example, the not speaking out on politics earlier, which I know sounds like a cop-out, it's like she could have just taken her phone and done this. Who knows? Maybe she doesn't have access to her own social media. We don't know. But yeah, no, there are definitely things, like again, when she recently released that album and was singing about Kim Kardashian, knowing what Kim's going through at the moment with Kanye, and the fact that it was so long ago, I was just like, go let it go a little bit. And there are things where I'm just like a bit like, but yeah, it's all just part of the experience. It's like with your friends or your parents or your partner, like it's, what's that Bob Marley quote that like everyone's going to let you down at some point, but you've got to realize who's worth it, in a sense. Like, we're all human, everyone makes mistakes, but yeah, that's just such a good commentary on fandom. Some, especially on social media, some of them they just ride for their faves, even when they do things that are, you can't argue that it's not the right thing. Okay, here's an example. She's a billionaire. Like, let's be honest, that is a big example of someone where it's just like, oof, there are no good billionaires. Could you not have... She gives a lot to charity, though, but she could give more.
She's also incredibly cloistered from the perspective of, like, she's never been to, like, a regular high school. She's never had she's been so famous for so long that there are so many things that you just get to learn when you're out in the world. And if you're so wealthy by the time you otherwise would be having those sort of post-high school experiences, and you can't even post on social media without it potentially having a flow-on effect that could cost literally millions of dollars or potentially millions of fans, and therefore everyone's invested in your every move for the perspective of like just keeping the business afloat. I feel like you're not allowed necessarily to learn from your mistakes in the same way. And so how unfortunate that must be for a developing human. I always think like, oh, I'd love to be really successful, but I'd never want to be super famous, because a big part of being a creative person is being able to just observe the world and observe other humans. And if you're so observed that you never get a chance to actually watch other people without them watching you first, how might that affect your artistry?
Totally. Even just now, we just went to go get a coffee. She can't do that. She can't do... I don't know if you remember... I don't know why I keep bringing up Justin Bieber, but I don't know if you ever saw there was this footage of Justin Bieber came to Australia, and he was at Grilled Charlie's, I think, at like the Woollahra store, and there's just this infamous photo of he's sitting there eating his chicken, and there's just this barrage of fans around him, and he's just trying to pretend like, I'm in a glass box, they're not here, he's just eating, he's just ignoring them. And I'm just like... And same thing with her, like, imagine just not being able to go to the shops or do anything without it being scrutinized to the nth degree. Like, that must, as you said, impact your artistry. And that's why a lot of her songs are about how she's really, there's under a microscope and how much pressure there is with that. But then it also makes you think that, every decision that is made by a celebrity of that size, or even lesser ones as well, it's been a group decision, a group consensus. And that's why, for example, it's like, oh, why hasn't she spoken up more about the election and this and that? It's like, she's kind of bound by, this whole conglomerate, the record label, all these different things about being like, yeah, if I make this decision, let's say to call out Trump, I'm losing X amount of fans, which equals X amount of dollars, which impacts more people than me.
Which impacts the size of the arena that I can book in Texas, because
Nailed it.
I actually can't guarantee a certain return on investment, which means the companies that are lending me the money to launch this particular, that would otherwise invest in this era, are going to be more gun shy, pardon the pun, because they will not necessarily get the same return on investment.
That's exactly it. And so I'm not saying that I condone it or support it. In fact, that's one of the things that I go a bit like about, but I'm just saying I understand why it's happening. However, I will say with this last election, she came right out not for the first time, I think it was the second time that she'd done it. And she, as we're leading up to the election, she, made a post supporting Kamala. And I was just on my knees being like, thank you, Taylor. I can finally turn to the people around me being like, why are you riding so hard for this girl? Being like, okay, well, that was, that was one for our side, basically. I'm glad that she did that.
And the genie was out of the bottle. Like, we kind of knew which way she
Totally.
led.
She supported Hillary, I believe, as well. I could be remembering wrong.
Although maybe there was actually a point in this election where they were like, will she or won't she?
Yeah.
So maybe it was actually the Kamala... I mean,
totally.
Tragically, wasn't enough.
Totally, but I mean, I'm sure it would have helped move the needle as well. But also, I think a part of it as well was that, I don't know if you saw, but Donald Trump was being like so antagonistic towards her, and he kept saying that she was a fan and kept releasing these like AI ridiculous deep fake doctored images, being like, look, she's a fan, that were clearly fake. And she was finally like, I need to come out and shut this down because people are so stupid and they're going to believe the nonsense that he's giving. And unfortunately they did in the end. He got elected, but
he almost gave her carte blanche to be able to then be more vocal, because he started it through that.
He started the convo and she just like shut it down basically. So that was a factor in it as well. But like her even making that post about Kamala, I guarantee would have ruffled some feathers in her team probably. And I'm just glad that she said something. And you know what? I'm sure there are a bunch of Trumpian parents who were probably like, we are not going to whatever the next era is because of that. But she took that risk. She's also a billionaire now, so it doesn't matter to her. So there's also, I am aware of it. I am aware of the reasoning behind everything, but I'm just glad that it happened, because there are some celebrities who didn't say anything, so at least she did. But again, she's a billionaire, so she can afford to. It's a mess, but I get it.
So in the for those who are yet to go on the journey of the Taylor Swift experience, if they were to start with a particular album, because I think even beyond a single or a video, like there are some artists who are video artists, there are some artists who are album artists. I believe that Taylor is an album artist. Yeah. Where should you start if you were to choose one album that is your gateway drug into this diva?
The same gateway drug that was for the rest of the world, other than obsessives like myself, 1989.
Okay.
Because that's got the spectrum of slow, sad, super lyrical songs. It's got your fun, upbeat, Shake It Off, which honestly, I don't even think it's one of her best songs, but it's one of her most renowned songs. But, it's got so many other great ones on it. So that would be... Style.
What's that beautiful one on Safari?
Wildest Dreams. Yes,
oh my God,
absolutely, yes.
Thank you so much I felt like I got educated in the Taylordom. So thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks for having me. This has been a pleasure. I could talk about Taylor Swift all day.
For days. This episode is brought to you by the Men's Circle. If you're frustrated with lack of connection, lack of community, lack of good conversation, then the Men's Circle is for you. It's a guided breathwork session and a group conversation, and it makes it really easy to find the words to talk about whatever's going on for you that day, that week, that month. If you're in Sydney, you can join us upstairs at the Beresford on the second Sunday of every month. Places for each session are limited, so get in quick and reserve your space. Search I Am Self-Centered on Instagram.